leaning slightly forward, speaking directly to the camera in a hushed, compelling tone. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Void Whisper Stories. I am Ahmed. Before we begin today's story, I need you to do something for me. Look away from your screen, just for a moment. Look at the window in your room. Is it dark outside? Good. Now I want you to ask yourself a very simple question. When did you last look at that window and feel certain that you were alone, that nothing was watching from the other side of the glass, that the night was just the night? If you're like most people, you feel that certainty right now. But what if I told you that for one man, that certainty was a carefully maintained illusion? An illusion crafted by something that didn't just watch from the window, but lived in the reflection of the window itself. This is not a story about a ghost in a house. This is a story about a ghost in a pane of glass. And the most terrifying part? It didn't want to get in. It wanted him to come out. If this is your first time with us in the Whispers, you are stepping into a vault of documented terrors. Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss when we open a new file. Because what you're about to hear has never been told on YouTube before. This is the account of Oliver Thorne and his window guest. Oliver Thorne was a man who prized clarity above all else. A successful architectural photographer, his world was one of sharp lines, perfect angles, and controlled light. His apartment, a sleek box of concrete and glass on the 14th floor, was a testament to this. Its centerpiece was a magnificent 5-foot-wide window that offered a breathtaking, uninterrupted view of the city's twinkling grid. Oliver loved this window. It was his barrier against the chaotic world outside, a perfect, silent sheet of glass that framed the city like a living photograph. That changed on the night of October 23rd. He was editing photos late, the room dark save for the glow of his monitor. As he stretched, his eyes drifted to the window. In the black mirror of the glass, he saw his own reflection, the glowing screen behind him, and something else. Just behind his reflected shoulder, a tall, starkly thin silhouette stood. It had no discernible features, just a man-shaped void, darker than the surrounding night in his reflection. His blood turned to ice. He spun around. The apartment behind him was empty, silent. He looked back at the window. The silhouette was gone. He wrote it off as a trick of fatigue, a phantom born of pixel strain and late-hour shadows. He was wrong. The next night it returned. This time Oliver was prepared. He kept his peripheral vision on the window's reflection as he worked. For hours, nothing. Then at precisely 3:07 a.m., it was simply there again. Not moving, not approaching, just standing, a sentinel in the land of reflection. Oliver, heart hammering, conducted an experiment. He slowly raised his right hand. The reflection of his hand rose in the glass. The silhouette did not move. He waved. His reflection waved. The silhouette remained still. Then, with a deliberate slowness that froze the air in Oliver's lungs, the silhouette in the window raised its own arm, a smooth, impossible motion, and mirrored his wave. It wasn't mimicking Oliver's real movement. It was mimicking his reflection's movement, but a half second out of sync. The message was clear. I am not out here with you. I am in here with him. It was interacting with his echo, trapped behind the glass. Thus began a terrifying, silent coexistence. Oliver named it the guest. The guest only appeared in the window's reflection after dark, and only when Oliver was alone. It never appeared in mirrors, phone screens, or the dark TV monitor. Only that specific window. Oliver, the rationalist, became an obsessive researcher. He set up cameras. The footage was baffling. The camera pointed at the real room showed nothing. The camera pointed at the window, capturing the reflection, clearly showed the tall, dark figure standing behind an empty space where Oliver's reflection should have been. It was a being of pure reflection, invisible to the physical world. He tried covering the window. The moment the curtains were drawn, a profound, sickening dread would fill the room, and a single sharp scrape would sound from behind the fabric, as if long nails were being dragged down the other side. He had to leave it uncovered. The guest began to communicate, not with words, but with reflections. One evening, Oliver, in despair, held up a handwritten note to the window. "What are you?" In the reflection, his own note was clear, but next to it, reflected on the non-existent glass surface within the reflection, faint, watery letters appeared as if written in condensation. L-O-S-T. Another time, he held up a photo of his late father. In the reflection, the photo was the same, but the guest's dark hand now rested on his reflected father's shoulder. It was learning about him, piecing together his life from the reflections of his possessions and actions. The worst was the night Oliver broke down crying from frustration and fear. He saw his own reflected tears, and then he saw, in the reflection, the guest's dark form gently place a shadowy hand on his reflected shoulder, a gesture of cold, mocking comfort from within the glass. The rules of this nightmare solidified. The guest could not affect the physical world, but it was learning to manipulate the reflected world with increasing sophistication. Oliver's reflection began to occasionally lag or move independently, a slight smile when he was frowning, a turn of the head before he moved. It was as if the guest was practicing, learning to pilot his echo. Then came the invitations. Oliver would find himself staring at the window, not at the city, but at the reflection of his own apartment. In that mirrored space, things were different. A book would be on a reflected table that wasn't on the real one. The reflected clock would show a different, impossible time. The guest was curating a better, more interesting version of Oliver's life inside the glass, and it was always standing just at the edge of it, waiting. The unspoken offer became palpable. Step into the reflection. It's better here. Oliver's sanity frayed. He stopped seeing friends, fearing they'd see the guest in the window behind him. He took a photo of the cityscape one day. When he viewed it, in the center of the window in the photo, a pixelated, distorted version of his own face was pressed against the glass from the inside, mouth open in a silent scream. The guest was now inserting itself into captured reflections. Desperate, Oliver sought the only expert he could find, Ilara Vance, a retired professor who wrote obscure papers on reflective hauntings and metaphysical architecture. She listened to his story, not with skepticism, but with grim recognition. "You haven't been haunted," she said. "You've been selected. Your window isn't a portal, it's a trap. And you're not the bait, you're the key." Ilara explained her theory. Some places, through a confluence of geometry, light pollution, and human loneliness, become still ponds in reality. They develop a persistent, stable reflection, an echo world that runs parallel to our own. Usually these reflections are empty, but sometimes things that get lost in the deeper, stranger layers of existence wash up in them. The guest was such a castaway. It wasn't a ghost of a dead person. It was a concept given form, the embodiment of loneliness and observation. It couldn't escape its reflective prison on its own. It needed a consciousness to act as an anchor, to blur the line between the real and the reflected. It had chosen Oliver because of his profession, a man who spent his life framing reality, perfecting it. It was grooming his reflection to become independent, and once that process was complete, it would switch them. Oliver would be pulled into the reflection, a permanent prisoner watching a fake version of his life play out, while the guest, wearing Oliver's perfected reflection like a suit, would step into our world. "It doesn't want your life," Ilara concluded. "It wants your point of view." There was one way to break the link, Ilara said. The guest's existence was tethered to that specific window's reflective property. He had to shatter the reflection without shattering the glass, and do it at the moment the guest was fully manifested. He had to create a reflective paradox. Oliver returned home, a plan forming. That night, as the guest stood clearly in the window, Oliver didn't look at it. He set up two large, pristine mirrors facing each other, creating an infinite tunnel of reflections. He placed them so that their reflective path intersected with the window. Then he stood in a specific spot. In the window's reflection, he could see the infinite tunnel of mirrors within mirrors, a dizzying corridor of light and replication. And in every single reflection of that infinite tunnel, in every single pane of illusory glass, stood the guest, thousands of them, stretching into eternity. The guest in the main window recoiled. It was used to being the sole entity in a single reflection. Faced with its own infinite duplication, a flaw in its very nature was exposed. It was unique. This paradox of endless self-copying caused a catastrophic glitch in its stable form. The window's reflection shimmered like a heat mirage. Oliver, taking his chance, shone a blinding, direct spotlight onto the window. For a split second, the reflection was not of the room or the city, but pure, white light. He heard a sound like shattering crystal, felt a wave of static pressure, and then silence. The guest was gone. The window was just a window. Oliver felt the oppressive dread lift instantly. He slept for almost a full day. When he awoke, he felt free. But weeks later, while editing new photos, he noticed something. In shots containing any highly reflective surface, a polished marble floor, a car's windshield, even a spoon, a faint, familiar elongation in the shadow seemed to linger at the very edge of the frame. It was never clear, never direct. Just a suggestion. Alar had warned him, "You don't banish a fundamental concept. You can only scatter it. You've broken its stronghold, but you've also broadcast it." Oliver moved apartments, but he can never truly look at his own reflection without a flicker of fear. He knows that somewhere, in the infinite hall of mirrors that is our reflective world, a lost guest is slowly, patiently trying to piece itself back together. And it now knows exactly what its next anchor looks like. So what happens when the barrier between us and the world isn't a wall, but a mirror? Oliver's story forces us to question the very windows we look through every day. A part of me wonders if, right now, as you look at your own dark screen, something is looking back from the other side of the reflection, learning, waiting. This story crawled under your skin. Then you know why we do this. Share this video with someone who needs a new reason to glance at their window tonight. Subscribe to Void Whisper Stories and ring that bell, because the line between whisper and scream is thinner than glass. I'm Ahmed. Until next time, remember, not all guests knock. Some just reflect the window is always watching. Subscribe to Void Whisper Stories.